Good evening, and welcome to the Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show. Tonight I have Bryan Tremblay. Did I get it right, Ryan?
There you go. Yep, that was accurate.
And I learned that was Cajun French. So we have got our hands full tonight.
Oh yeah,
Um, so
don't get me all tempered up and riled up, man. You'll regret it.
I don't know why I haven't heard. I've heard that before. So, just to recap, you've been
Mhm.
doing this almost all of your life. Your dad got you into the cryptids. You want to go into that?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I was always into monsters. I loved the monster movies, Godzilla movies, Gamera. But my dad, who was Cajun, every time I would go out with my friends and we'd go into the woods because we lived in Massachusetts at the time. Every time I would go out, he'd tell me, "Oh, don't let the wood boogers get you. Don't let the Rougarou get you." When I was a little kid, I thought, "Oh, just campfire stories." Until he started really telling me what the Rougarou was, and I was kind of like, "Whoa!" And that just got me hooked on things like that. And of course, he showed me the Patterson Gimlin film. I think I was about 7 years old when he showed me that. So I was just instantly hooked into Bigfoot. When I saw that video, I was like, "Oh, monsters are real."
They are. That is one clip of a Bigfoot that you just cannot dispute. I don't care who you are, you can't dispute it.
It's funny because I actually got into an argument with my neighbor this morning. I showed it to him, and he was just trying his damnedest to prove that it was fake, that it was a hoax. And I'm like, "You're an idiot. You're not looking at the video. You don't know what you're talking about. Get out of my house."
you gotta you need to keep better company, brother.
Oh, definitely. I mean, he's one of those guys. He doesn't believe in UFOs. He doesn't believe in the paranormal. So naturally, with him, cryptids don't exist. And I'm trying to tell him, well, gorillas were once cryptids. Yeah. So he's kind of like, "Oh, no, they weren't cryptids." And I just tell him, "Shut up and get out of here, man. You know what you're talking about."
So you really do in-depth studies. One of the things we were talking about was the Wendigo.
Yes. Yes. That's one of my all time favorite topics.
Well, let's get into that. What is the misconceptions on the what's the okay? So let me say this: what's the difference between a skinwalker and a Wendigo?
Okay, so when you look at the Skinwalker, or as they're called by the Navajo people, the Yanagoshi, okay, they're a shaman that learned the dark arts, the forbidden arts, the forbidden part of their religion, where they can learn certain magical spells, incantations, and whatnot to pour power into an animal pelt to become that animal. Now, on the other side of the coin with the Wendigo, it's a spirit that will possess somebody, usually after they break certain cultural taboos, such as cannibalism, greed, lust, or they can be cursed by a shaman to become Wendigo. So one is an entity, a spirit, I guess you could call it, because the name Wendigo, it actually translates loosely to the spirit who devours. Okay. And then Skinwalker, by all means, on all fours he goes. So you got a shaman on one hand, spirit on the other.
So Wendigos usually are around the cold areas or where the climate's pretty cold. Is that correct or is that a myth?
No, it started up in Canada. It started with the Cree, the Algonquins, the Ojibwe. And so it was kind of rooted with them, but every tribe has a take on that belief. It's not exactly identical, but there's similar beliefs. Like the Cherokee have the Raven Walker, a spirit that looks like a raven that's after the heart of the person who's about to die. So there's similarities, but they're not all identical.
So of all the things that you research, what has been the most intriguing and misrepresented?
I'm going to say either the Skinwalkers or the Wendigo. Because, I mean, you talk to people and they'll say, "Oh, the Wendigo, the thing with the stag head." And that's when I step back, go, no, 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 it was never depicted as a stag-headed creature. I don't know where you guys keep getting this. So I have to go into this long explanation, explain, how it started, what it really looks like, and even talk about a case from 1878 where there was a man who became a Wendigo.
So can we hear about that case?
Sure, sure. In 1878 at Fort Saskatchewan in Canada, there was a Cree fur trader by the name of Swift Runner. Okay. Now, he's been hunting and doing all this stuff his whole life, so he knew what he was doing. One winter, he took his entire family, which consisted of his wife, his mother-in-law, and his 3 kids. And he went to the hunting cabin that he would normally stay at. And 3 weeks passed. And he showed back up at Fort Saskatchewan. And he's telling people there this story of how they were starving to death. There was no food to be found. But people were noticing that Swift Runner himself looked like he gained weight. Not like he lost weight, not like he was famished or starving, but he actually had gained a good deal of weight. And as the day went on, he started drinking a bit and a bit more. He became a bit more loose-lipped, and he started talking about how he cannibalized his family. So they started asking him, "Why did you eat your family?" And he was very open about it, which is very odd for a Cree man to do. He told them, "I am a Wendigo." So the magistrates from the fort, they arrested him and they had him escort them to his hunting cabin. And when we come across his hunting cabin, it was like one of the grisliest murder sites of that time. They found, handprints smeared across the wall that was from blood and the fat from his human victims. They found the femurs cracked open, and he had sucked out the marrow from the femurs. He had cracked open the skulls to get the brains. And he told a very graphic story of how he took his infant son, wrapped a rope around his neck, hung him from a pole, and just to see how fast he would die, he would tug on the infant's legs. And he took joy in this. He said it very casually, very nonchalantly. And these poor magistrates are sitting back going, "Oh my God, this guy is crazy." But his own people are going, "No, he's a Wendigo." So historically, though, Swift Runner was also the first clean execution in Canada at that time. They had hung him at the gallows. So he was the first execution as well.
Well, I'd say he pretty much deserved that.
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting when you really dig into Swift Runner because you find out a couple of different stories. Some stories will say that he was a very violent, very angry man. But when you look into the journals from that fort, all these details say that he was a very loving, very kind, very gentle-hearted man. So for him to go from one extreme to another, it's like it makes you wonder what caused this. But then you find out, too, from stories from his own people, he was having nightmares of the Wendigo weeks and weeks before he killed his family. And with the Ojibwe, the Algonquin, and the Cree, the Wendigo can enter your body through dreams and through nightmares. So, it makes you wonder, were these dreams, him getting possessed? Is this what turned him into a murderer? I think it is. I really think he is one of the cases where we can say he was a Wendigo.
So how does the person become a target of a Wendigo? How did they choose him?
Well, it could be a number of things. It could be that he was more susceptible to it, either through maybe some inner fear, or maybe he had stronger belief in it than other tribe members did. Because, the stronger you believe in something, the more of a receptacle you become for it. And when you have that strong belief, it'll acknowledge you because you're acknowledging it. So I think maybe in his case, it was a combination of fear, desperation, and he just, was really open to it. So when he was having these nightmares, the Wendigo was visiting him because he knew he was open.
So you have spent your life pretty much trying to correct the misconceptions of the native lore, the native traditions. Then let's go into that for a moment. Let's take the Skinwalker.
Okay.
Let's just take it wherever you want to go. The Skinwalker, now correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there a human sacrifice involved with that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. When somebody becomes a Yinarushi or Yanagoshi, as it's pronounced in the Dene language, they usually have to sacrifice a loved one, and it has to be someone very close to them, which means like a wife, a child, a husband, someone that they genuinely love. And then from there, they'll eat the heart of the person they kill. And it's a very dark ritual, and I think it's done in order to show the dark magic that they're opening up to, that they're willing to sacrifice for it. They're willing to give up who they are and what they are in order to be part of this magic. So what they do after they commit that murder, they'll get together with the other people that have chosen this path, right? And they'll do days and days and days of chants and ceremonies in order to provoke that dark art to enter their bodies.
So almost like they go into a trance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they really shed all the good parts of what they were. So even if they were a good person before, they're not a good person after. They're there to cause chaos and strife within their own tribe.
Were the Skinwalkers always bad?
Not always. And this is where it gets really, really cloudy, because in 1878, which I find really weird, because remember, Swift Runner in Canada, 1878. Okay. Now you have the Navajo witch purge in 1878. Kind of a weird coincidence there, huh? And
Absolutely.
during this Navajo witch purge, like the Navajo were killing people that they thought were practicing the dark arts. But before then, they viewed the Skinwalkers as protectors of their tribe. So something happened that nobody can figure out that turned the Skinwalkers from good to bad.
That is where I'm intrigued at. What could have happened to make that change? Do you have any type of kind of
My
figurative?
theory, well, my theory is that it was the arrival of the white man. That when we came over and we started forcing them off their land, that, the Navajo felt they had to fight back by any means. And, they would naturally use what they had at their disposal. I think the Skinwalkers were what they were using to fight the white man. But I think, the Skinwalkers themselves became a bit too greedy, and they learned, hey, we have great power that we can take everything for ourselves. I kind of compare them to the Jedi and the Sith. I know that's a really geeky way to look at it, but you know how you have the Jedi that they'll protect people, right? And they'll fight the forces of evil, they'll fight wars, but then some Jedi fall to the dark side from anger or hurt feelings. I got to wonder if maybe it's the same with the Skinwalkers. Like something happened along the way where they were so angry at their own people that they decided, okay, I'm no longer serving you.
So I heard you say earlier that if someone tells you in the South they saw a skinwalker, it's not a skinwalker they saw. Can you explain that?
No. Right. Okay. So with the Navajo belief, there's what's called the 4 sacred mountains. Okay. Now there's 6 mountains in total, but 4 of them are very, very, very sacred. And it's at these 4 sacred mountains that the Skinwalkers, the Yanagoshi, will go to harness their power, because the Navajo believe that the mountains and the earth were gifted to them by their God. Okay. So these 4 sacred mountains are gifts from God. And they believe that all the power stems from these mountains. So if you see a Skinwalker outside of, like, Arizona, New Mexico, or Colorado, that's where all the mountains are. If you see them outside of there, it's not a Yanagoshi, it's not a Yinarushi. It might be a shapeshifter, but it's not a Skinwalker.
What's the difference between a skinwalker and a shapeshifter?
Well, a Skinwalker will take the pelt of an animal. Now, with the Yanagoshi, right, it's usually predatory animals, because, again, in the Navajo culture, predatory animals are very, very sacred. So you see what they're doing here. They're using sacred animals and becoming them as a slight against their own religion. Now, a shapeshifter can just, it can take on the form of anything. It doesn't have to be an animal. It can be another human being. It can be, even a rock mound if they wanted to. So there's a big difference, because Skinwalkers will just turn into the animals. They don't turn into human beings. They don't turn into, like, your friend. Say you're walking with your friend and he or she's acting weird. No, it's not a Skinwalker. It's a shapeshifter, possibly. But, they don't take on the form of humans like shapeshifters will.
Well, let's go into shapeshifters. How does that happen? Is it where a person...
Oh, boy.
Yeah, let's go there.
Your guess is as good as mine. I like to believe that shapeshifters are interdimensional beings, or maybe there's some kind of science or whatever behind it, but I haven't learned it yet. So I can't proclaim to be an expert or to even know about it just yet. I'm looking into it, not so I can shapeshift, but I guess I need the answers.
So Dirt Road Bigfoot says, Ohio Wendigo. How true is that one?
Well, it's not very likely. Okay, because Wendigo, they're usually confined to places like, Canada, or even sometimes Minnesota on a very rare occasion. But if there's going to be a Wendigo, there has to be a person that's either cursed or breaks that cannibalism taboo. So unless we have all these cannibals running about eating people, then we're not going to really have Wendigo, and I think people need to understand that they're not interchangeable, that you can't just disconnect them, that you have to have them both hand in hand. Because, look at the name, like I said earlier, Wendigo translates to the spirit who devours, okay? So they need that human vessel to enter. So you need the cannibalism, or you need somebody to be cursed. So I don't think it's very likely that Wendigo is going to show up in Ohio. I really don't.
So Wendigo is like a possession.
Yeah, that's what I would actually put it in the league with. And if you ever look into, like, Jack Fiddler, okay, there you go. That's a perfect example. He was an Algonquin shaman that he used to kill people that were possessed by Wendigo. He's killed 14 in his whole history. So it's like, wow, he knew what he was doing.
Wow, that is incredible. I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit more about that. I do have a question. Brian Barber says, does Ryan think that skinwalkers, being protectors of Native Americans, went to war with Bigfoot, who are rumored to kill or kidnap the Native women?
Oh, good question, Brian. Ooh, nice. Honestly, I don't think so because like I was saying earlier, the Yanagroshi, okay, they go against everything that's sacred to their people. So if it's important to their tribe, it's no longer important to them. So say Bigfoot was stealing from a Navajo tribe, kidnapping women, the Yanagroshi is going to go, oh, I don't care. It bothers you, so I enjoy it. I get off on it because it's bothering my people. It wouldn't really want to risk anything. So
So when you're going deep into these subjects, what is the one that we know that the Wendigo intrigues you, but what is the one that kind of scares you the most that you
oh,
just
easily the Skinwalkers, the Yanagroshi, because I mean, Wendigo, I like to believe is real, okay, and it's way up in Canada. I'm in Arizona, so I don't really have to worry about it. Yanagroshi, though, I'm in Arizona. This is Navajo territory, so I'm very spooked out that one day I'm going to be doing my investigations. I'll be out researching. Lo and behold, there's a Skinwalker, So I'm always like, oh no, don't happen, don't come to me.
but you went on tribal land and you just basically put it out there and told them what you're looking for. You want to go into that part of it?
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that anybody else tries doing this because I took a big risk. But when I needed the information for the Skinwalkers, I wasn't finding anything that was reliable. Okay. I don't like to use Google, I don't like to use YouTube. So I figured the only way I could actually get the real stuff was by going on the reservation. So I recruited a friend of mine and I told him, hey, we're going to the res because I'm going to find out about Skinwalkers. And, I'm trying to be this really Billy badass. And I walk right on to where there's a big crowd of people. And I probably should have been more polite. But what I did is I was like, okay, who's going to tell me about the Skinwalkers? And it was one of those moments where I was like, this could be instant regret, just by the looks that I was getting. And I remember I turned to my friend. I was just like, we are going to die because I was getting such dirty looks. It was scary, let me tell you. But this elderly couple came up to me and they were very gentle. And they were like, why do you want to know? And so I told them, well, I'm tired of, YouTubers and podcasters putting out all this fake information. It's your stories. You should be telling them and telling them to somebody who can relay them back to everybody properly so that they learn your ways. And I guess for some reason they were just touched by that and they started talking to me about it.
So when you started going down, I call it the rabbit hole, but when you started going down that rabbit hole and you're trying to get the truth out there, then you go to YouTube and you see these people that are just, I don't want to say a mockery out of it, but they're using their traditions of their people for, I'm not going to say fame, but it is what it is. What
Clicks
can
and
you
views.
tell? Thank you. What are some of the things that you can debunk about what they're doing, what they're saying, or what's something cautionary you can put out there to the viewers and myself to watch for with these people?
Okay, well, a lot of them will tell you that they use things like katana blades to fight the Yanagoshi. Okay, now from what I heard, it's not going to work. It's not something you can just walk up and pull a ninja on and pull your katana blade and kill it. It's got to be a blade that it's blessed by a shaman. All right, and it's got to have white ash on there because white ash does reduce their power. But also, people don't just go out and fight these things. They don't physically fight them. It's a spiritual battle for them. They usually have a shaman doing blessings and doing chants and ceremonies to weaken the Skinwalker, and they have methods of learning its real name. Because with a Skinwalker, if you learn its real name, you take away its power. So when these people are talking about how they're going out fighting them and they're having these epic battles with them, that's not true. That isn't true at all. And you should really watch their body language. Okay, if they're calm about facing a Skinwalker one-on-one, chances are they're lying their butts off. Okay, because nobody's going to be calm facing something like a Skinwalker. When they tell you certain things, like you can just shoot it or you can take the pelt off of it, you also can't do that. No.
So this is where I get confused. Is it the shaman that gives them the power that takes them down that road?
No, it's like they learn it. It's almost like any mystic art. It's something that they can learn from their ancestors and it's passes down, so it's a tradition. And they learn it from their elders and they learn it from other people. And what I've always told people is a shaman, okay, he or she has to learn both sides of this, okay? You have to learn the good medicine along with the bad medicine. And most of the time, they'll use that good medicine to heal the people, to bring prosperity. But every so often, they do have to use it to, make somebody get back in line and behave right. So these shamans, sometimes they lose focus, okay? where instead of focusing on the good, they go, oh, well, wait a minute. If I use the bad, I get fear, and fear is power. So I get what I want. So they kind of drift over to that dark side, and then they go ahead and they choose other people that should become part of their little sect.
They have to pay the ultimate sacrifice. Well, someone they love or care
Right.
about. That is crazy. And it's
It's
scary
scary.
too.
It is. It's terrifying. And that's why it's one thing that when I see people joking about skinwalkers, especially, I sit there and I tell them, God, you don't know how disrespectful you're being. You talk about don't whistle or don't say the name skinwalker. No, what you're doing by disrespecting them, that brings their attention to you because you're mocking them. And when you mock something, you're teasing it. And you're going, ha, ha, ha. I don't think you're as powerful as you say you are. So naturally, that skinwalker is going to go, oh, really? You want me to prove it to you?
So Brian Barber said, is it true that the curse of the Wendigo can be removed and reverted back to human form? Is that true, or does a human have to be sacrificed? Wow,
In
Brian,
most
that's good.
cases, in most cases, they die because it's a very brutal method in which they get rid of the Wendigo. Sometimes it's funny. What they'll start off with is the simplest of things: heated up beef tallow. That's beef fat. And what they believe is the beef fat will melt the ice around the heart of the person turning Wendigo. Now, if that doesn't work, they'll use silver on it in the form of silver knives, and they'll beat the holy hell out of the poor person. And most of the time, that person dies.
Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
So that gets really deep. So let's look at this. Skinwalker Ranch. Is that a skinwalker? What in your opinion, with your knowledge and studies, because you've been at this basically your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
What's your theory on the Skinwalker Ranch?
I think at one time it might have had a skinwalker. I don't think it's currently a skinwalker. I do think a lot of it is sensationalism. I think some of it is exploitation. I mean, because once you get into the UFOs and all that, you're stepping outside the skinwalkers. So is it something supernatural? It very well could be, but I don't think it's a skinwalker.
Ralph said, can I get a skinwalker to come after me to finally get in a good battle? Ralph, if that's really what you want, I mean, I imagine you can think about it hard enough and they'll find you.
I wouldn't recommend it, Ralph. I would not recommend it because it's not just a physical battle. Like I said, it's a emotional, it's a mental, it's a spiritual battle. And I hope you have some indigenous people on your side to help you.
Well, only Ralph can answer that. The fact that he would even ask that question, I'm going to have to pray for you tonight, Ralph.
Yep. Just don't risk it, Ralph. It's not a good idea.
So when you're getting into the skinwalkers, you're getting into the Wendigo, then you get into, what's your take on the werewolves? Werewolves, dogmen. There's so many out there that we haven't even touched on. Where do you want to
Well,
start?
with Dogman, I definitely believe in Dogman because I had my own Dogman encounter. So I definitely believe in those. Now, my take on werewolves, it's not popular with people, but it does have its precedence. I have to wonder if maybe old Europeans and, Celtic people, they might have glimpsed, dogmen. And since they saw a dogman walking bipedal, superstition was very strong back in those days. Okay. So maybe they saw these dogmen. And they were like, oh my goodness, that was a human at one time, or that's somebody from our village cursed to become this wolf. So I think werewolves and dogmen to a degree go hand in hand. I think they're one and the same to a very short extent. So that's my take on it.
So that kind of brings to a story in the area that I live. And you can actually find this story posted. Kid went to a drug dealer's house, just like probably in the 80s. And
Mm-hmm.
his mom ran in to get, some dope. And this dude had all these bulldogs chained up in his yard. And he was sitting in the car waiting for his mom to come back. And these dogs were raising Cain. He said all of a sudden they got quiet, very, very quiet. And he said
Uh-oh.
he looked around and he said he's called it a werewolf. He said a werewolf was walking right across the yard, straight to the car, got
Wow.
into the got into the floorboard, and he said he could just see the shadow of it. And he was down
Wow.
there, he was praying, he was scared to death. His mom was in the house buying her some Mary Jane or whatever. And he said after a few minutes, the dog started barking again. and his mom walks out the door and looks up, nothing there. I do not think that was a kid imagining that. I don't.
Well, no, I mean it might not have been, but you also have to keep in mind though that as a culture, we're brought up on werewolf movies, right? So we watch the Wolfman movies, we watch American Werewolf in London. So if we don't study cryptozoology and we just see something like that in the wild, our minds are going to go to what we already know. Okay, so if somebody that never got involved in our community sees a dog man, naturally they're going to think it's a werewolf, and that makes sense. So in a very large way, werewolves are real. They just don't change from human to beast and back again.
Um, so this is your time and your study. Where do you want to take it from here?
I'm open to questions from anybody. If they want to ask questions, I'm more than eager to answer.
I don't see anything popping up in the chat. Last, you were saying to on one show about, I guess it's okay. I do have a question. The
Okay.
Gogway, the Gogway,
Oh, the
Googway.
Gugwe. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to hear about that.
Okay, so a lot of people are seeing a type of Bigfoot that, it has a mandrill or a baboon-like snout. It's a little bit shorter than most Bigfoot, though depending on the story. Some people say they're taller than your average Bigfoot or they're much smaller, but they're way more aggressive. Like these things are known to attack people and go out of their way to get people, and that thing's always fascinated me because it's like, what makes this type of Bigfoot so darn nasty? Is it just doesn't like people in general? Or is it just like the ultimate predator? But there's kind of a disconnect with the Gugwe if you really look at it, because people base the Gugwe name on the Gugo, which is a Iroquois basket ogress. Okay. Now, when you look at the stories, though, the basket ogress is always female. So how is it we're going to name it, the Gilgui when it's not really one and the same?
Hmm. You got me on that one, brother.
Yeah,
I
it's really
heard they're very aggressive and they're very evil, very
yeah,
fast.
that's what I've heard too, and I don't want to see one. And somebody did tell me that they've seen them in Arizona, so I'm going, oh come on, man, really? I may never go out in the woods alone again. Thanks.
So Brian says, has Ryan experienced more than one type of cryptid? If so, what's his scariest experience?
I did have the Dogman encounter. I had a possible Bigfoot encounter, and that one was really interesting because I was out with a friend. We were actually paranormal investigating at that point. We weren't looking for Bigfoot or anything. It was me and him and his pit bull, and he's got a good sized pit bull. And we were out really late. It was probably about, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was really, really dark where we were at. There was no full moon, no lights. All we had were our flashlights. And we caught whiff of this really just pungent odor. It stunk. It was like it made my nostrils burn. And so we thought maybe we came across sulfur or whatever. But as we're walking, we can hear something not too far from behind us. We can hear the footfalls, like so we stopped and was like,
Goodness.
going on. And I got the smart idea. I was like, you know what? Let's see if we get a Bigfoot response. So I played the Ohio Howl. I'm not sure if you've heard that one before.
I have.
Okay, so I played that. What I would do is I'd play it twice in a row, then I'd stop for about 5 minutes, play it twice again, stop for 5 minutes. And I did this maybe about 3 times. And on the third time, I stopped it, and all of a sudden I hear this like whoop, whoop. And so, that's when me and my friend, we tensed up and we're like, whoa, is somebody out here with us? We're looking around, we're not seeing anybody. So we turned off our lights again, and all of a sudden we hear like a rhythmic clapping, like it's just a steady. So I'm not sure what was going on there, but when we looked around, we hit a certain spot. We could see eye shine that was probably about 7 feet up. When our lights got near it ducked down behind some bushes. And we were like, okay, it's time for us to get out of here. So as we started getting out, his pit bull was crying. She was getting super nervous. Her tail was between her legs. Her ears were back. The fur was up. And she's just whining, whining, whining. So, when a pit bull that big gets nervous, I'm like, okay, definitely time to go. And as we're moving down through the valley, though, we can actually hear footsteps behind us. And we can hear
Oh
rocks
man.
being pushed down the hill. So whatever it was, it wanted us out of there.
I imagine you respected the wishes of it.
Oh yeah, I was eager. I'm like, no, let's get out of here. Let's not even mess around because we're on its turf. This isn't our property. It belongs to whatever is out there. So let's show it the proper respect and get the hell on out of here.
So let's go into your dogman experience.
Okay, so what I was doing is about 2 years ago, a friend of mine asked me to house sit for he and his wife while they went on vacation. And so, I agreed. And they have this really nice house that was next to the foothill area, right? And if anybody knows what a foothill is, it comes down into your property. And when you go up it, it kind of leads into the mountains, okay? But on one side, it had an embankment that went down into the riverbed. And this is going to come in really handy for later on. So when I got to his house, it was about midnight, okay? And I noticed the coyotes sounded really nervous, and I hear coyotes every night, so I know when they sound anxious, but they sounded nervous, like nervous. They were yipping and they were actually biting each other and crying and whatnot. I just kind of
Oh man.
dismissed it. I figured, maybe they're hunting, whatever. And as I went to his house, I went along the side so I could go into his backyard. And I'm going to his backyard where this gate is, and it smells like rotted meat, feces, and body odor all just mixed together. I was just like, I thought that was really disgusting. And I thought maybe it was roadkill, and I didn't make anything of it because at the time I actually didn't believe in Dogman. So I go into his backyard, and as I'm going back, it's pitch black back there. I hear somebody moving. Okay. Now I thought maybe it was a homeless guy that had come up from the riverbed because that was common in the town that we lived in. So I puffed up because I'm only like 5'10" and a half. I'm not a big dude. So I puffed up like that puffer fish, and I'm all, hey, trying to scare whatever it is out there. And at first it's quiet, and I hear the movement again. So again, I puff up because I'm going to defend my friend's property. I'm all, hey, this time I get met with this really deep growl. When I say deep, I felt it in my chest. Like that growl was going right through me.
Oh
So I
yeah.
kind of figured maybe it was a mountain lion or even possibly a bear, even though I knew we don't get bears in that town. It's not common. And so I keep walking to his backyard. And just as I get back there, I can see something moving in the shadows. You know how when you're looking at a dark shadow, but there's something in there, you can still see it moving?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I saw. And like it looked human in its shape. So I assumed it was a trespasser. So again, I'm yelling out, hey. And this time I get met with another growl. But then the security lights kicked on from the movement, right? When the lights go on, what I'm looking at is a bipedal hyena. It's standing there, and I can see it. It looks just like a hyena in the face. It had the colorings, the markings, the squared off ears, and I'm going, what the hell? So I don't move. I try not to move at all because I know if it's a predator, don't run. You'll instigate the predator prey mechanism. So I'm just sitting there staring at it. It's staring at me. And I can see its ears going up and down. I can see the eyes blinking, right? And for no reason, this thing charges forward in a bluff charge on all fours, stops on a dime. This thing stopped in the most smooth, fluidic fashion I've ever seen an animal move. So it stops and it goes back up onto two legs and it reaches up and it's holding onto this branch from a tree in my friend's yard. It's just staring at me, like it's looking right into my eyes. So I'm kind of diverting my eyes away from it. And it keeps staring at me and staring at me. And then finally, it started to turn away and it started to go down the riverbed. And the minute it was far enough away, I was like, I'm out, man. I grew rocket boosters in my butt. I was running up the stairs into my friend's house. I'm locking his doors. I'm bolting his windows. I'm pulling his drawers open, looking for any kind of weapon. So I call my friend and I was like, hey, man, something you didn't tell me? There's a hyena in your backyard. And my friend had a good laugh for the first 5 minutes. He's like, Ryan, there's no hyena in Arizona. And so I'm trying to tell him, no, man, look, I know there's no hyena in Arizona, but I'm telling you, I saw a hyena in your backyard. So there's something you're not telling me. So he came home and we started looking into it. And I found Linda Godfrey's books. And in some of her books, she mentioned the hyena like dogmen. So I'm going, oh my God, this is what I ran into.
You saw a dog man. Now,
Mhm.
I may be wrong, but someone told me a while back that hyenas were originally a North American animal. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had prehistoric hyenas way back in the day, but they were more in like the Nevada and Utah areas than they are in Arizona. And believe me, that crossed my mind. When I was looking into it, I was like, well, maybe it's a prehistoric hyena, but I talked to Ken Gearhart about it. And he was
Yeah.
like, well, no, what you're describing doesn't sound like those. So sounds to me like you had a dogman encounter. So I'm going, oh, great, cool, awesome.
Well, I say it goes with the energy of the land. I think energy is a big thing with a lot of
Oh,
things.
absolutely. I mean, people think I'm crazy when I talk about it, so I'm so happy that you agree with it. I believe that there's energies and power in land, and it's sometimes not to be messed with, and you have to respect it.
Well, let's go down that road.
Hmm.
When you're talking about the energy, a lot of that we were talking earlier today about residual energy
Hmm. Right.
and how things can come up that used to be there.
Right. And especially
And
in places like Arizona, because we have a rich and illustrious history, because
yeah,
we got numerous tribes that lived here and they still do. But there's also a very bloody past with some of those tribes, so there's some darker energy there. So it does manifest itself at times. And I do firmly believe this. I absolutely do, because I had a paranormal experience one time when I was out doing dogman investigations with my own dog. It was just he and I. We were out in the middle of the desert. Nobody was around. There was no houses, no roads, no streets. And out of nowhere, I hear a group of young children laughing. Now, children laughter in the dark is terrifying. I don't know why, but when you hear
it
kids
is.
laughing, for some reason you're like, okay, yeah, I'm about to have a heart attack here. And it sounded like these kids were running towards me. Like I could hear the rocks moving. I could hear their feet hitting the sand. So I'm kind of going, what is going on here, man? It was like, it terrified me. So that was a paranormal experience. And I think what it was, I ran into the ghosts of the native children that lived in that area.
Well, I tell you what, that I don't know if I would stay there after that, but
Oh, no, I didn't say I was gone. Duke and I, we split. My dog and I grew rockets and we were just, vroom, we were out. But what's funny though, it happened just 2 nights later with me and my friend. I was telling him about it and he didn't really believe me. He doesn't believe in the paranormal stuff. So I was like, well, come out with me. Maybe something will happen that'll change your way of thinking. And he's like, all right, well, fine. I don't think anything's going to happen. And as we go to that same area, he heard the kids laughing first. So this was like, kind of a aha moment for him, because he stopped and he was looking around. He's like, dude, why am I hearing kids? And I told him, I don't know, but I'm hearing them now too. So this is what I heard the other day. And it sounded like the same exact laughter. They sounded happy to see us. Almost like
it
when
happened.
someone is, when kids are happy to see you, how they get that really high pitched
Yeah.
chuckle. Yeah, that's what it sounded like. It sounded like they were rushing towards us to greet us or something like that.
Did that happen around the same time?
Yeah. Yeah. It was actually the same time, just, 2 nights later.
So, if I'm not mistaken, in one of your prior interviews, you were talking about something mimicking the sound or calling someone in the voice of a family member or a friend. Do you
Oh,
know what
that
I'm
was
talking?
my possible skinwalker encounter. Yeah. I was out investigating and I was by myself with this. So this is what made it really creepy. I didn't tell anybody I was going. So nobody knew I was out investigating. Okay. And I'm on this long stretch of desert and I'm just, I'm doing my thing. And I hear in the distance, Ryan, Ryan. And
Mm.
I'm looking around. I don't see anybody. Okay. There was nobody there. And something way he kept calling my name, Ryan, Ryan. And I knew better. I knew they can mimic. So whenever you hear something, anything calling your name when you're by yourself, don't ever respond and don't go looking for it.
Absolutely not. What makes a skinwalker target someone?
Well, it could be because it knows that I believe in them, and belief is power. I'm not sure if anybody else in the audience believes that, but when you believe in something, you give it that much more credit. So that
Yeah.
credit, it's like, you're building it up. So I don't know if maybe, if it was a skinwalker, it was going, hey, you're a white guy that believes in me. So let me mess with you a little bit.
Well, that would be that would make sense, sir. That would make
Hmm.
sense.
Or, maybe because I'm a white guy, want to confirm my belief in it. I don't know, just whatever the reason was. I hope it wasn't really a deadly purpose.
But that would go back to energy and the
Hmm.
history of the land. You've been a white guy. I assume you were on tribal land at the time, correct?
Yes, yes.
So that
Well,
would
in
go back to
Arizona,
history. And
what
go
people got to remember is in Arizona, basically all land is tribal land, so
yeah.
we're kind of intruding upon what belongs to the tribes.
Well, it sounds to me you've got a lot of cooperation in telling the story.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I always tell people that when I started looking into the indigenous lore, I actually fell in love with the culture and the people. So I've kind of changed my life where I'm kind of following their ways now. So it's a really interesting change in my life there.
So when you're talking about the native customs, especially the history of the land, a lot of that gets flipped around to
It does.
suit someone else's belief or their
Yes.
their view on things. What are some of the things that you can take a moment and educate us on?
Okay, so like one really popular thing in the Bigfoot community is people will say that all tribes think Bigfoot as a positive thing. And while that's true for most of them, not all of them have a positive tie to the Bigfoot. Okay. Some of them do think of them as bad. Like, look at a name. When you look at a name and the meaning of the name, it's going to tell
Mhm,
you a lot. Like, Skookum means mountain devil. Okay.
mhm.
So they did not believe that the Bigfoot was a good thing. To them, it was a devil that would, eat people and would harm people. And it's something I think people really need to look into and start opening their minds. And don't just fixate on one belief. Look at all beliefs and kind of see if they line up.
And how about going to the people themselves instead of believing everything you hear?
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, like one of the best people that you could ever ask anything is William Nighthawk. Okay. He is just a wealth of information and he's a Lakota. So be respectful, but approach him and ask him about his people's beliefs and their customs. And William will tell you, William will let you know. He'll educate you. He educated me, and I'm so grateful for it.
So let's get into the Bigfoot.
Hmm.
Bigfoot is something we're all familiar with. Everyone's heard of Bigfoot. I research, everyone researches. So when you're going down to tribal land, you're speaking with tribal people, and
Hmm.
you've already said the encounters weren't always that great. Let's hear some of the problems that they've had with them and some of the stories that have been carried from generation to generation because tribal people, native people, they keep their culture better than any culture out there.
Oh, they absolutely do. And one of the ones that intrigued me the most was actually the Iroquois, because they have the stories of the Genosqua. And I think somebody asked about Genosqua in the chat, but Genosqua translates to the Stonish giants. And the reason why they called them the Stonish giants is because these particular Bigfoot were supposed to be really smart. Like what they used to do is they used to roll in mud and sap, and then they would roll in river rocks to create kind of like an applique armor for them. And the reason why they did that is because they knew the Iroquois were using flint arrowheads. Okay, now if you got rocks on you, how useful are those arrowheads?
Not
Not at
very.
all. You're right; they're going to bounce right off. And according to these stories, the Genosqua were so bold that when they would raid the villages, they would whistle to let the tribe know that they were coming. So that's kind of like them sounding the war cry just to scare the
Wow.
people, knowing, oh, they're coming and we can't stop them. And they would raid, villages, and they would kidnap men and women and children and take them back and eat them. They would cannibalize them. So all this changed when the settlers came and they had their flintlock rifles, because, you know, bullets are going to go through rock and through mud and everything. So the Genosqua kind of learned, we're in trouble. And there are stories of Genosqua killing people too.
I think I'd stay away from people too. I mean, if they
Yeah. I
start
mean,
shooting through me.
1817, there's a story of the hunter and his son that went up to Canada, and they hired an Iroquois fur trader, and he told them, "I'll take you on your hunting trip, but we're staying away from this island." And he kept telling them not to go there because Genosqua is there. Okay, and typical to tourist fashion, one of them's like, "Oh, he's saying not to go there. I'm going to sneak over there." And so he did. The son snuck over there via a boat. He got into the canoe, traveled over there, but the fur trader saw him going. He was trying to bring him back. He's telling him, "Come back, come back, come back." And his father was urging him to come back too. And as the story goes, when he hit shore over there, he was walking up a small embankment, and they saw a Genosqua come down and started chasing him down. And it grabbed him. It put one hand around his waist, the other on the top of his head, and it severed his top part of his body from his lower part.
Wow.
It just ripped him
I
clean in
could
half.
not imagine. having to watch that. Wow.
Well, I mean, it kind of served him right. When somebody tells you don't go there because there's something there, don't go there.
Well, I was going to say that, but I didn't want to be the bad guy and say it. That's what I got you here for, Ryan.
I'm the guy that's going to speak out on a lot of things. You'll learn that about me. If you look at my Facebook posts, I am very, very adamant about speaking out.
Well, I know you're working on a lot of projects and you have a lot on your plate, but it is a Bigfoot show. When you're doing your research out of all of the states, what seems to have the most Bigfoot encounters or stories that you're getting them out of?
Oh, I'd say either California, Washington, or even Ohio. I get a lot of grassman encounter reports from Ohio. And that's always fascinating because the Ohio grassman is becoming a very popular Bigfoot type.
So, well, the grassman is so type of Bigfoot, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I believe it is. I mean, some people describe it in a very weird way. I've heard reports where it's had like greenish fur, and I see some people say that's ridiculous. They can't have green fur, but they could though, because Ohio has a lot of lakes and ponds. Okay. Now, if you're traveling through swamps or muck or whatever, and you got long hair, it's bound to get on your hair, and maybe moss or mold even grew on the hair or fur. So it would have that greenish tinge, and so when they say green fur, I don't think that's crazy at all. I think that's actually very realistic.
Yeah, that would be environment. I totally get that part. What about Alaska?
Alaska's definitely got a lot of stuff that's interesting. I mean, the killer Bigfoot, that's very intriguing. And I got to wonder if, Port Chatham, right? Port Chatham is where the people left or disappeared. And I do think that, a Bigfoot might have been responsible for that.
I have always found that fascinating. What have you found out about that? Because if I know you, you have dug your little self right on in there.
I have. I actually, there's a lot of stories about, people having incredibly hostile Bigfoot encounters. Okay. And they tried to appease this thing. It even got to the point where the Eskimos that lived up there, right? That they were actually trying to have negotiations with the Bigfoot. They were trying to bring it things to calm it down, and nothing was working. So I'm always trying to figure out, was it just it didn't want humans there, or did these humans do something to anger the Bigfoot that live up there? And I got to wonder if maybe somebody injured a Bigfoot or maybe killed one, and that's why these Bigfoot are so aggressive and wanted these people gone.
Well, I would say that was probably it, because memories and fear and culture get handed down from generation, and it's
That's true.
you know, even let's go back to 1800s. You have a bad experience, you see slaughter take place. You're going to teach your young to stay away from people.
That's true. That's true. And I think Bigfoot's smart enough to know that when they see humans, they go, "Uh-oh, this could be bad."
We do
I mean,
have a
they see us hunting all the time. Yeah, I mean, they see us hunting all the time, so when they see the guns, they got to know what those guns do. Okay, it's going to dawn on them when they see us killing deer or bear or whatever, that guns are bad, and they're going to see us killing those animals, so they're going to be like, well, anything that's different from them, they're going to kill. So humans can't be good, right?
Well, yeah, you're also looking at competition for food source. So Dirt Road Bigfoot says, is it true that native tribes actually traded with Bigfoot?
Yeah, actually, there are stories where they had a very peaceful existence with them, where they would bring them tobacco and the Bigfoot would bring them fish, or they would trade them furs for other things, and the Bigfoot would bring them precious stones.
So what do you think of gifting? Do you think people get themselves in trouble with gifting?
I think gifting is okay. I don't like habituation, though. I think when somebody's trying to habituate either a Bigfoot or a dog man, it could go sour real fast. Because
Now,
when you look at like how people feed bears, right?
Mhm.
If you miss a feeding schedule, that bear is pretty much breaking into your house to get food. And sometimes, well, you are the food. And I think with Bigfoot, if you get them into the habit where you're feeding them, you're doing an injustice on a couple of levels here. Okay. You're putting yourself in danger, but then you're kind of making them reliant on you. And for them, that's very dangerous because they need to know how to hunt. They shouldn't rely on human beings for food. They need to have that hunting instinct and learn how to, forage for their own stuff. So you shouldn't be doing it, and if they get aggressive with you, then it's your fault for, getting them used to you feeding them like that.
So you could come across something really strange in the desert where it was habituation that you felt like they were. You want to
Oh
go
yes,
into
with my
that?
dog man. Yes. So the story of that is I used to go investigating down in riverbeds because in the town that I lived in, we were a mining town. And so we were surrounded by, mountains, valleys, and riverbeds. And the riverbeds is where I did my research mainly. And I went into one and I was going maybe like 4 or 5 miles in. And there was
Mhm.
no real houses nearby. Nobody else was there. And I was coming around the bend and I noticed up on the left side that it looked like it had been cleaned out by somebody. Like somebody shoveled it out, made it smooth. But in the middle was a pedestal made of mud and clay. And on top of that pedestal was a silver platter. Okay. The silver platter had all these exotic fruits like kiwis, plums, coconuts, pineapples. So, really weird that you have that on a pedestal out in the desert. Yeah. So I
Mhm.
thought maybe they're feeding javelina, but it's too high for the javelina because it was about 5 feet up. Right. So I'm like, okay, it's not javelina. Maybe it's birds. But I noticed that there's bites. There was actually bites in the fruit, not just like pecking like the birds would do, but actual bites. And I'm going, okay, so what are they feeding here? So I left it alone the first time. The second time when I came back, it was replaced. The fruits were fresh. So whoever was doing this was making sure that the fruit was fresh and not old. So I left them a note, okay? And I asked them, what are you feeding here? And I put it under the platter. A couple of days later, when I came back, I went back to the same place and I looked under the platter. They responded to my note and they drew a picture, right? And they said, we're feeding these, but be careful, there's more than one. And what they had drawn was exactly what I had seen in my friend's backyard. It was a bipedal hyena. So somebody was out there feeding these things.
I don't know about you, but if I was a dog man, I would want me like some pork or some side of beef. I don't think I'd want a kiwi.
I think what they were trying to do is they were trying to curb the meat appetite because they wanted to domesticate them in a way. They wanted them to be friendly,
That's
and
probably
I'm kind of going, well, maybe they're omnivores, for all we know, maybe they were feeding them meat somewhere and they were just taking the meat first, but the fruits were just kind of like dessert or something like that.
well, it could be. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't know why someone would want to do that with a dog man. I could almost
Oh, I
see
don't
it.
either.
Yeah, I could almost see it with a Bigfoot because to me they're just so human. They have so many human qualities, and
Right.
but to me a dog man is a wild thing that to me would tear you apart.
Well,
But I
tell you
know
what,
coyotes eat a lot of berries too. So
yeah. Well, after seeing what I did, I wouldn't want to domesticate or habituate that thing. I mean, do I consider a blessing to have seen it? Sure. Sure. It opened my eyes. But, would I want it to be in my backyard all the time? Absolutely not.
I'll tell you how I described what I saw. What I saw, I said it had like an Akita, like an
Ooh.
Akita's face. That's what it
You know,
looked like with me, Akita, an
I have
Akita
to admit,
snout.
that is one part of the dogman phenomena that really baffles me is the numerous depictions that we have of them.
Yeah, no,
I
we
mean,
don't have any.
well, there's so many different types that people are seeing. I mean, you got like, the dog soldiers kind, you have the American werewolf in London kind, you have the hyena type, and it's just like, why are there so many? It's baffling.
Let's see. Dirt Road Bigfoot said, Ryan, I have a theory that crybaby hollers and bridges could be Bigfoot trying to lure and might not be quote paranormal.
Well, I would agree to that to an extent, but there are also times where people hear those sounds and there's absolutely nothing around.
Rock clacking. Is it rock
Yes.
clacking or are they hitting, are they thumping against something or are they making the
So
noise with their
I have a few
mouth?
different takes on that.
Okay.
I have a few
Okay.
different takes. I think they do the rock clacking, right? And I think they kind of do the rock clacking when they're hunting or whatever. That's to scare whatever they're trying to hunt. But I do think that they do mouth pops and maybe even slap their chest. Now, not to compare them to gorillas, but if they are primates, okay, they're going to have primate-like behavior. Gorillas and other primates do the whole, chest slapping as a way of communicating. So it's possible that they do the chest slap as well.
That's
I'm
pretty
not saying they're
interesting.
a type of meat, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty interesting because you get a lot of reports of the tree knocks, the clacking, the
Hmm.
odor.
Yep.
What's your theory on the odor they let out?
Okay,
Or
so
what's
again, I'm going to kind of compare them to other primates, but I'm not saying that
Mhm.
they are like the other apes. But gorillas, mountain gorillas, actually have a gland, ironically, in their armpit, where when they want to scare away other males or intruders on their territory, that scent gland is activated and it stinks. It smells atrocious. Okay, so I got to wonder if Bigfoot has a similar thing, and if it's a primate, it might just have that gland where it can actually secrete it when it wants to scare people away.
Let's go into habitat. I know they need water security, like shelter, a food supply.
Right.
But what do you think our impact, especially when you're going toward the East Coast?
Mhm.
North Carolina, you have population boom. Florida, South Carolina, Georgia, all the way up the coast. People are just building left and right. We're killing habitats for all of animals, if you want to call them an animal.
Well,
What do you?
I think they have remarkable adaptation abilities. I really do. I think that they can move into an environment and they can get accustomed to it very quickly. And that's again, that's another primate, trait right there, because they know how to find what they need. They know how to avoid people, and with enough cover, you can hide from anybody. Bears, grizzly bears can actually be right next to you and be crouched down low. You would never know it unless it wants you to know. So Bigfoot's probably, 10 times the ninja that a bear is. So I think that, they could remarkably survive anywhere they wanted to.
They're also they can move in stealth. You just don't
Hmm.
hear them.
Right.
They're
I mean, I
there.
think they're ninjas. I'm convinced that they're a type of ninja. You know, that's how I describe them to people. I always tell them, well, you won't really see them if they don't want you to because they're ninjas, man. They're like, ninja, vanish. And they're gone. So,
All right, Ryan, let's talk about what you want to talk about. I've asked all these questions. Just roll with it, brother. What
okay. So,
topic you want to hit on?
well, I got some books that I'm working on, actually. I'm going to be working on a Wendigo book, of course. And then the follow up will be the Skinwalker book. And I'm hoping to do a third where I can actually cover the indigenous views on Bigfoot. And I would try with Dogman, but contrary to popular belief, there's not a lot of Dogman tales in the indigenous tribes. So I'm trying to dig deep, but I'm not really finding a lot of stuff. The only thing I can really find that's similar is the Cherokee belief of the Ilonga Dogada, the the spirit with knife teeth. I mean, it seems like it's a dogman to a degree, but then when you look at the details, I gotta kind of go, well, maybe not, because it's a spirit. So I don't know. I want to cover stuff like that, but it's very difficult to do.
So, my biggest curiosity, hellhounds. What do you know about those?
Well, I know that they can be brought through with certain spells and chants and rituals, but I also know that in some cultures they're viewed as positive. But in our culture, in American culture, they're very, very dangerous. And I think something that a lot of people kind of skip over, if you see a hellhound more than once, it's not a good thing. There's that old lore that, if you see a hellhound 3 times, that means you're going to die next. So
Well, we
I
have
think
a have. Go ahead.
I think when people go looking for hellhounds, which I always think is a really stupid idea, you shouldn't go just looking or trying to summon something spiritual like that because you don't know what you're unleashing. But if you're looking for hellhounds, keep in mind if you see it more than once, you could be in a lot of trouble.
Well, we have a knack of taking something good and making it a negative through history.
Yeah, we do. Actually, werewolves was something too that, they were viewed in a positive light during medieval times. And over in Ireland, they have what's called the wolvers, okay? And they're described just like we describe dogmen. They're bipedal, upright, walking wolves. But the difference is, though, they help weary travelers. So if you're a traveler in Ireland or any Celtic land and you're lost, these wolvers will feed you, they'll shelter you, they'll give you clothing to help you stay alive. And it's really interesting to see how overseas they have such a positive view, whereas in the States here, we have such a negative view.
Don't we though? And that would go back to a few years ago in North Carolina where a little boy went missing, and they ended up
Hmm.
finding him, and he said a bear kept him warm all night. I
Yep,
mean,
I
was it
remember
a
that
bear
story.
or yeah, was it a bear?
Well,
Was it Bigfoot or you know?
well, from what I've read, and I don't know if it's true or not, and I'm still looking into it, but Bear was actually a friend of the family who he's got some kind of a Down syndrome or something like that, where he doesn't talk much, but they call him Bear because he's a very big guy. And that is supposedly what the kid meant. Now, is that true? I don't know. It could be. It could also be a lie to kind of throw people off. You never know with the cryptids, man.
Hmm. So, what do you think some of these famous attacks we've had across the nation? And we've had quite a few in North Carolina. I'm not saying
Mhm.
they're all cryptid. Some of them, I mean, pack dogs kill for pleasure, and people
Oh
kill
yeah.
for pleasure. You know,
Oh, they sure
everything
do.
else, everything else seems to be killed. You know, something's killed for necessity. So, when you're looking
Mhm.
into these attacks, and I know you do, what are you finding?
Well, I'm finding that it's possible. I'm open to cryptid attacks. I don't think that every person that goes missing or gets attacked in the woods was a victim of a cryptid, but I do believe that it could happen. And since they're in the wild, we have to remember that chemical signal is actually a very real thing. All right. So when we're using the shampoos and the body soaps and the deodorants and the colognes, it smells good to us. Okay. But to them, it might rile a really aggressive response because it's very chemical. Okay. So I do think that people that go out there are some attacks that are genuinely cryptids. I really do believe that. And to address somebody in the chat, Brian, I do believe that LBL happened. Okay. I don't believe Roger, though. I don't believe Roger was a survivor.
Yeah, I have my questions about that.
Well, I mean, none of it lines up. Okay. Because, I listened to his story numerous times. And I don't mean any slight towards Elijah Henderson or anything like that. But
Mhm.
when he said that he hid under the trailer and he even got a burn mark from having his arm against something, okay, well, if you get a burn mark from that, okay, if you have physical evidence that you were there, wouldn't you take pictures of this burn and say, here's the burn that I got from hiding there? But he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't show any kind of physical proof. And if you're not going to show any kind of evidence when you claim you were a part of something so big, then you're kind of asking to not be believed.
I have to agree with you on that.
Hmm.
So let's go back into your books and your projects. And I apologize for getting off.
Oh, no,
Getting
no,
you off.
don't apologize.
So let's get back into your projects that you're working on. What's your favorite one? Which one do you just dive into and you just can't get enough of?
I'd say the Wendigo, because it seems like I'm learning something new about the Wendigo every single day. And it's just one of those topics that, like I said before, it's not covered properly. Okay.
Uh,
And if I can bring real information and really educate the people where they're respecting the oral traditions of the Algonquin, the Cree, and the Ojibwe, then I did my part. Like I don't even really look forward to the money I get from the books. I just want people to be educated. That's the big payoff for me is the education, is helping people learn. So, it's something that I'm really in love with it. I know it sounds twisted, but I'm in love with the Wendigo subject.
Now that we all have that one thing that drives us. So while we're on Wendigo, if there's anyone in chat that has a question about Wendigo, ask now, and we'll try to get it answered before we move on to the next subject.
Hmm. Yeah, Brian, we seem to agree on a lot of stuff. I know you and I talk on Facebook once in a while.
Brian's my buddy. I love me
Yeah,
some
Brian's a good
Brian.
guy.
Okay,
Brian's a good.
next. Yeah. Okay, next Skinwalker. Anyone have any questions on Skinwalker?
Fire away, people. No question is off limits here.
Oh, they might be getting coffee or something.
Hey, there you go. Get me a cup.
Dogman. Anybody got any questions on Dogman?
Actually, I do have a question. I want your opinion on Dogman. Do you think that they're physical beings or do you think they're interdimensional?
If what I saw that night at 2 o'clock in the morning, I would have to say physical, because to me, if it was interdimensional, it would not have had a dead rabbit in its mouth.
Okay, that's a good point. Now, what's your opinion on the whole possible interdimensional theory or the Topa effect?
I think that the more I get into the subject, the more I'm not going to say I don't believe, because
Okay.
the more,
First,
the more, yeah, go ahead.
personally, I do believe that there's a topo-like effect going on. Okay,
Mhm.
and when you look at things like the rake, people claim to have seen the rake, which I have another opinion on that too. But I do have to wonder if there's a topo-like effect where people are thinking about this stuff so much that our thoughts are creating energy, and that energy is creating these imageries of things that we supposedly see in the wild.
Well, yeah, and another thing is when you talk about something and you're discussing something, and then you see something out of the ordinary, your mind's
Yep,
going to go back to that topic and it's going to play something
absolutely.
in your mind. Now, I can say when I had my sighting, that it was the furthest thing from my mind, and it was very quick, very fast. I
Interesting.
call myself a professional coffee drinker because I didn't drop my coffee, I, but the first thing in my thought was that some redneck had bred something in their garage that escaped, and it was not normal to my environment. And when I say it was not normal to my environment, it shouldn't have been there. It should not
Yep.
have been there. But I will say this: my encounter was very boring. It's not something like to get
Yeah, mine
excited
was too.
about, because I see all these pictures of Dogman. I see them on the thumbnails. I see them everywhere. Mine was very toned down. It was, I had an Akita face, really massive upper body. Did not see the tail because I was looking at what was going to cause the most damage to me, and that's what and I say 42 teeth. That's what a regular dog would have, but that was, I was looking at the danger that would have been the head,
Same here.
and
Same.
it was really dark, but it had no reflection to it, and that part kills me. I could see the definition of the rabbit, but it was like
Hmm.
a black against black, but you could see the difference.
Whoa.
But it, I mean, it was just it was there and gone, and I was just like, and I really hate to say this, I was like, oh shit, I mean, that's all I could say was I was out there by myself on night
I
shift.
understand completely. I couldn't even form words when I saw mine. I just I was thinking, what the hell am I looking at? I didn't vocalize it though.
Well, I did. I did.
Oh,
But I
Dirt
held
Road
on
has
to
a
my
question.
coffee. Yeah, I held on to my
So,
coffee. And the thing is, I know scent. I know scent. I know how it works. I know scent pools. I've been on night shift all month. I'd been there doing my paperwork. Like the week
right.
before it happened, I was, in my truck. I'd be doing my paperwork. It'd be 2, 3 in the morning because we work 7 to 7, and I felt something watching me, and it was like I would
Ooh,
look up over the hood, like expecting someone to stand there. So I know that it knew I was in the area when it crossed. I know it did.
wow.
The thing
That's
about that, before it got dark, there was like two cul-de-sacs, one that went straight and one that went to
mhm,
your right, and we had a creek that hit a major river in the area. So, there's your water. We're, off a main road. We were close to an interstate, but that day I had seen a rabbit going round and round and round in circles, and I know rabbits do that, but this rabbit was on the edge of the road, just going round, round, round. And someone told
ooh,
me it could been something could have really been just messing with it, or I've got it on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of it. Infrasound.
infrasound. Yeah.
Yeah, they said that would do that, but I don't know. I just know that
Wow.
it, at first, because I was a canine handler. I said
Mm-hmm.
German Shepherd, or maybe a Doberman. But the more I've
Okay.
calmed down and I've stopped and I think about it, and this is why you always, you question it, or you talk to a witness, then you go back a few days, because they start remembering
Right.
more. They kind of get the fog out of their brain. It had more of a Akita snout.
Wow. Very interesting.
But I mean, it was crazy. But the arms were almost like the arms were doing all the motions, pulling it, not running, but pulling it. And
Wow.
I didn't know about Dog Man. I was just sitting there like
So were the
thinking that,
arms really long on yours?
yeah, they were longer than normal, but not abnormally long.
All right.
That's
So
the only,
same as with my Dogman encounter, it had very long arms.
mhm,
So
not
and it
this
seemed
one.
like the legs were kind of short, but the arms were very, very long.
I would say this. It did not look like that was a natural gait for it. It to me, it looked like it almost appeared to be trying to be normal on all four. I
Yeah.
don't even know if that makes sense.
Same, no, same with mine. Same with mine. Like when it moved on all fours, it seemed natural then. But when it was moving on two legs, it seemed like it was kind of lumbering a little bit. So it seemed like it was
Yeah.
kind of struggling with that. Like it wasn't used to being bipedal all the time.
You have a Facebook user. I can't see the name, but it says, I believe Dogman was conjured up by the Native Americans.
Um, I disagree because really they wouldn't do that to like, hurt people. I mean, the only thing you can really find that's similar to Dogman in their whole oral tradition is, like I said earlier, the Cherokee belief of the Ulanga Dogata. Okay. And that wasn't conjured up by them. They believe that the land itself brought the Olonga Dogata onto them. So I don't think they did it. I really don't think it's Native Americans that are to blame.
Another thing, Richard said, did it have hands like a raccoon? I wish I could answer that.
Mine did. Mine
I
did.
wish, yeah, that I cannot answer, and I can't say it had a tail because I'm gonna tell you why. I was looking where the teeth was,
There you go.
and
And I think we had a
uh,
Wendigo question earlier too. I think I might have missed
uh,
that.
let's see. Let me go back through. Does someone have a Wendigo question?
And if
Okay, I might have missed it. Can you describe what a Wendigo might look like and what to do if you encounter one? That was Dirt Road Bigfoot. I said.
absolutely, I can definitely do that. So, all right, the popular internet version of the Wendigo is the deer skull or the stag-headed creature that has, the deer skull on its head with the big antlers and has the long neck with fur and it's got tails and it's got, like the wolf-like legs. That actually is not the accurate depiction of a Wendigo at all. Think of White Walkers from Game of Thrones. All right, they're supposed to be emaciated human beings. They're very, very pale, almost chalk white skin. They'll have chewed on their lips, so you'll see the bone and the gums underneath their lips because they chew their own lips from their starvation.
Oh,
They'll chew on their own fingertips. They'll chew their fingertips down to the bone because they're so hungry and they're constantly searching for human flesh. They're usually bald. They lose all their hair when they become a Wendigo. Their limbs grow a little bit longer, so they have abnormally long arms and legs. But you'll actually see, that you can see their bones underneath their skin. They'll have very sunken eyes. Usually those eyes are red or yellow. And if you encounter one, the best thing you can do is run. Run as fast as you can, but that might not do you much service because Wendigo are said to have telepathic powers. So he or she's going to know where you're going to run before you know where you're going to run. But one way to stop them is silver, of all things. Interesting how silver is part of Wendigo and werewolf lore. If you get
yeah.
a silver dagger, okay, you have to remove their heart with a silver dagger. You burn their heart, okay? And once the heart is burnt down to ash, you put that ash in a silver box. Bury that silver box in hallowed ground so that Wendigo can't come back.
When you say hallowed ground, explain that.
Blessed ground. So you'd have to find a ground that was, it's holy, that was blessed by a shaman. And it's supposed to be declared spiritual and sacred because a Wendigo can't emerge from that anymore. It can't touch that land.
So going to your basic Baptist church down the street wouldn't do it, would it, buddy?
No, no. You'd have to
I
find,
think
a
it would.
shaman from
Yeah,
the
I get
Native
it.
American culture and have him do it for you.
Okay, I have, and I know I'm probably going to get some negative feedback. I have a hard time wrapping my head around the rake. I have the
Well, I do
hardest
too.
time. Oh, do tell.
Okay, so what people don't want to really recognize here is the rake was a creepypasta started by 4chan. Okay. And nobody really started seeing these until that rake became more popular, more synonymous with social media. Now, I'm not saying that they're not seeing pale humanoids because there is a thing for the pale humanoids. They're called the Googal. Okay. Native American tribes talk about them, but they're not the rake. What they have that's different than the rake is the rake will torment people telepathically. He'll visit certain people for a very specific reason, and they say his hands are always wet, and he has a very, very, very long fingers. So you're not seeing the rake. You're seeing a pale humanoid, a pale crawler, as we call them in our community. So that's my take. Oh, did we lose her? You still there? Uh-oh, it's just me, guys. I'll have to keep you entertained until she gets back. So, you guys got some questions or anything? Okay, so you want me to just keep covering them? So, okay, so Jimmy Barr, orbs. Okay, some tribes believe that orbs can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the color. Okay, so the white and the blue orbs, they say those can be your ancestors sending you a positive message. Okay, now the red orbs or even the purple ones to a certain degree, they say those are negative energies coming for you. So I don't really focus too much on orbs, but that's what some of the tribes say. So I hope that's useful for you. But back to the rake though. So in the rake creepypasta though, it was always very specific. Like, they talked about an old Spaniard man who encountered him and he was terrified of seeing him again. But the rake isn't without any precedence though, guys. If you look up pale crawlers, okay, and when I say pale crawlers, I remark like on Dover Demon or something along those lines. There are certain things like that, so it's not completely unheard of. Dirt Road. What actually got me into the Skinwalker and the Wendigo is I was noticing that people on social media and YouTube in particular were taking the tales and the stories from the Navajo and the Algonquin and the Cree, and they were just kind of twisting them, like they were making them whatever they wanted them to be, all for clicks and views. And I kind of thought, how disrespectful is that? We have native lore, and we're making it what we want it to be so we can get money on our YouTube channels. So I devoted myself to actually learning the real stories behind them, the real purposes and the meanings. That way I could relay them to everybody else and educate them in a very Native American sort of fashion. BF, let's see. What cruises do you think do not exist? Well, hard to say. I mean, I'm kind of a fan of all cryptids and I want them all to exist. But if I had to say that one was probably a hoax, I'd say maybe the Jersey Devil. Oh, she's back.
I
Or is she?
honestly thought that I'm right here, buddy. You can't get rid of me. That I thought something probably took out our internet. We live in a middle of the
Oh man,
country, and when they have a
I
wreck,
was
it
trying to
takes
take over your
everyone's
show. It was me.
Hey, you
Guilty
go.
confession.
Hey, you go right ahead. We were talking about the rake.
Yeah, I went into that a little bit, so I'm getting some good questions over here too. But yeah, BF, I'd have to say Jersey Devil. I mean, there's a lot of things that people like to say, oh, well, Mother Leeds was the one that gave birth to the Jersey Devil, but after looking into it, here's a little twist. Mother Leeds never existed. So if Mother Leeds never existed, does the Jersey Devil exist? Uh-oh.
Oh, you gonna have some haters on that one. I
You know
missed the
what,
one
Vicky?
about the
I am
orbs.
perfectly okay with that. Okay, so I was
Well,
telling that
I
the
am
orbs,
too.
like,
Honesty is honesty. Yeah,
yep,
I
with
respect
orbs,
that.
Native Americans have different views on orbs. Like the white ones and
Mhm.
the blue ones, they say those are your ancestors coming forward to give you positive energies. Whereas the red or the purple, even, that's the negative stuff. That's the negative energy coming your way.
Okay. I've heard the blue ones are pretty negative. I think can't remember where I heard that one, but I don't know. It's all I know the orange ones have popped up in Uwari a lot.
Right. Well, Deimos Mars makes an interesting point, but in a way, you're right, but in a way, no, because Wendigo, okay, they're not a creature unto themselves. Okay, it's an entity that has to enter a human body, so there has to be a possession for a Wendigo to occur. Whereas pale crawlers and things like that, and ghouls, they can exist on their own.
That was a good question.
Hmm.
Okay, I got, do you think orbs and Bigfoot are related? You guys have woke up now. Woohoo. Okay,
Yeah.
do you think?
I think it depends on the case, really. I think if somebody's seeing a natural Bigfoot, then orbs won't be there. But if you go along the lines of what I was saying earlier with the Tulpa effect, I think they very well could be related. Because if it's a Tulpa, maybe it's the energies from that Tulpa kind of manifesting around it or nearby. Because I don't believe energy just goes away. Okay, we're going to see energy in some form or
Mhm.
fashion because energy can't be destroyed. That's the one thing that's a constant. So if it's an interdimensional being such as a tulpa or whatever, that energy is going to be there. And it only makes sense that we would see the energy in the form of orbs.
You were saying earlier when you were asking me, did I think Dogman was interdimensional? What is your thoughts on that? I think I interrupted you, and I have a habit doing that. I apologize.
I think that they could be. I think again, like similar to Bigfoot, I think we're seeing a multitude of different things here. Okay, like in my case and probably your case, we saw physical beings. Okay, because
Mhm.
there was no spiritual stuff, there was no hokey pokey stuff. But when you hear about when you hear hunters say, "I shot the dog man," and it wasn't even phased. Okay, that's when I go, well, was it an interdimensional being? Maybe if it was interdimensional, its vibration was so high that the bullets just passed right through it. And that would probably be less common than the physical encounters, I would think. Though it could be the other way around. Who knows?
Okay, well, getting back to the question about the Wendigo and the rakes and the ghouls, it says, well, added on to that, I do believe they are all spiritual creatures and that they can manifest in different ways, but seem to be likely from the same source despite the differences.
Again, though, you have to absolutely look at what the Native Americans say. Okay, so like pale crawlers, all right, they have a separate name. They're the Guga, the people before the people. And the native story behind them is they were once human beings that abandoned the human way. They gave up on human life and they took to living in caves, living underground. And that's why they developed the really pale skin. And that's why they developed the aggressive nature. Now, with the Wendigo, again, the name means the spirit who devours. So Wendigo is definitely a spiritual entity, whereas the pale crawlers are a physical living being. The Wendigo is a spiritual being that's just waiting for a proper vessel to come along. So while they might look similar in some regards, they're not the same thing.
Okay, we have a Bigfoot question. It says, do Native Americans say if Bigfoot lives in caves in the trees, and would it be night or day if they're in the trees?
They don't really specify with that. I mean, when you talk to any Native Americans about Bigfoot, Bigfoot lives wherever Bigfoot wants to live. I mean, if he wants to live in your backyard or in your garage, that's where he's going to live.
Pretty much. It.
Hmm.
So going back to the humanoids, I showed you the video earlier today, and that's the first thing you said. Let's go into that for a minute. What's your thoughts on that?
On your video?
Well, on humanoids in general, we
Oh, the
well,
pale humanoids.
you can go into the video. I don't mind, just
Well, the
because
pale
I'm listening.
humanoids I was asking you about are the Gugot that I was talking about
Uh-huh.
earlier, where they're called the people before the people. And the reason why I had asked you about encounters in your area, because I know that like encounters here in my area are going up, and I kind of wondered if maybe where it had more wilderness, more trees, and everything, if the encounters were going up in that area as well. Because I was kind of trying to weigh the options out there and
Mhm.
kind of do a little statistic kind of thing to see if the encounters are really going up or not.
I know a lot of things changed when Hurricane Matthew come through, and
Hmm.
then I took a break from the whole cryptid world because I got sick of the drama. But I can tell you, I can tell you that that's a spooky place, but I love it. It's home.
I'm the same way. I mean, my circle has gotten so small in the past 2 years because of the drama that it's just like I don't even know if it's a circle anymore. I think it's a straight line.
I feel you on that, brother.
Mhm.
So crawlers are physical entities that were human. Wendigos are spirits. The ghouls, from my own understanding, seem to be part of a middle ground between physical and spiritual, with aspects of both.
Correct. But again, you have to look at the origins of all three of them. Okay. So whereas Wendigo is Ojibwe, Cree, Algonquin, things like that, the ghouls aren't part of the Native American belief. Okay. So to put them in the same category is kind of an injustice and a disrespect because when they talk about the Wendigo, they're talking about something very, very specific. And when they talk about it, they don't want you adding anything to it. This is actually why I kind of stepped up a little bit because when people were adding like the antlers to the Wendigo or saying Wendigo was this, Wendigo was Bigfoot, that's when I was like, okay, time to pump the brakes, and we need to stop and listen to how they tell the tale, and how they tell the tale is also how we should tell it back. We shouldn't be adding anything to it. Don't be putting it in the same category as anything else because we're disrespecting their belief.
Rougarou.
Oh, my childhood monster. So the Rougarou is something I find extremely fascinating. I love how if somebody breaks a lens, that's it. You're going to become the Rougarou, or you can become a Rougarou by looking one in the eyes. I mean, how messed up is that? Because I mean, if I were to see a Rougarou walking around, I'm going to look at its head, okay? And I'm pretty sure while I'm looking at its face, we're going to make eye contact. So what? I get in trouble for doing that? That's messed up. But my dad used to tell me about the Rougarou all the time, many, 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 many times during my childhood. Whenever I was going out into the woods with my friends, he'd be like, "Oh, don't let the Rougarou get you." At first I thought it was a joke. I'd be like, "Hey, that's funny, Dad," until he started telling me what the Rougarou was, and I was like, "That's not funny, Dad." Oh, did we lose her again? We lost her again. So, okay, Deimos Mars. It's interesting where the Bigfoot Wendigo comparison came from. It makes sense, but it doesn't. Okay, the Micmac, they have a name for Bigfoot where they call it the
Made the
Wendigo.
news. Go ahead.
Oh,
You
oh,
went out a little bit.
oh! I lost you.
I
So, all right.
stayed.
So the Micmac have a name for Bigfoot where they call it the Wendigo, but the spelling is different. It's Windigo. And the reason why the Micmac called their Bigfoot Wendigo is because it was a cannibal. Okay, so it was eating its own kind. But people kind of took that as, oh, Wendigo and Wendigo are the same thing when they're really not. So I hope that answers your question, Damos. If not, I'm sorry. Nope. Did I lose you again? Well, Dirt Road, from what I'm seeing, it seems like Bigfoot sightings are going up. I could be wrong, but I think because people are, we're now getting out into the woods a lot more. So, oh boy. Oh, we lost her again, guys. Ooh, Deimos, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I guess if Bigfoot is a type of human, then why not? But if they're some kind of animal, probably not. What do you think, though, Deimos? Do you think that Wendigo could take over a Bigfoot, or BFG? I do think that some of them are relic hominids. Yeah, I mean, you got people that describe some kind of human that's walking around out there, and you just can't ignore that.
Uh,
Oh, there she is. Oh, we got some trolls in the chat. Well, Ren, from what Bigfoot said, he doesn't think very highly of you either. So you're all good.
show because I keep dropping off. Don't mind. Ryan, are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here. You want to go ahead and end it since you keep dropping off?
No,
I mean, if you want to, we can do another show at another time. I have absolutely no problem with that. Uh-oh, we keep losing our guys. I don't want to drop off because I think we're recording, so. Ren. Oh, boy. You know, Dirt Road, I
yeah.
do think that. I think they are going into private research and everything because we see a lot of the bigger names kind of like, I don't want to say it really, but fuck it, I'll say it. They're becoming sellouts. You know, we see a lot of the big names just doing whatever to sell their books or to promote their show. And I think a lot of people are just having enough of that and they start doing the research on their own, which I encourage. I believe you have to get out there, gather your own evidence, form your own opinions, form your own beliefs, and that's how you're going to find more answers.
Okay, so I missed a part of Lizard Man. I'm gonna try this one more time. What do you think of
Okay.
Lizard Man?
So I actually do believe in the lizard man. Okay. And that's one of the things that I find really compelling because the young boy who saw the lizard man, he had no reason to lie. Okay.
Mhm.
And not too long after his sighting, there was somebody else who had their truck demolished by some kind of reptilian thing where they found coyote
Mhm.
DNA in there and they found a whole bunch of ravaged coyote bodies. So I think there's something to the lizard man tales. I really think there's some kind of giant reptilian out there that's living in Skateboard Swamp.
And what is up with these trolls? I just don't see why people just don't have better things to do than to troll people. It's just
Oh,
friggin'
because they're
bully.
bored. They're so unhappy with their own lives that they have to try to make everybody else miserable. So, you know, all you can do is wish them well.
Still sucking their thumb and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so BFFG, Bigfoot forest giants out of Florida, said a state trooper in Florida had a lizard man encounter. So I could
Yes, you
see
did.
Florida. That's probably I haven't heard on that though.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if there's a lizard man in Scape Ore, there would have to be another one. I mean, if they're going to exist throughout time, there has to be some kind of population, you know? So could they migrate down to Florida? Absolutely. In fact, if I were a lizard man, that's where I would go. Nobody's going to mess with you in Florida, man. And there's so many swamps to hide out in.
They got some fat snakes to eat on too up there. If I was lizard
Yes, they
man,
do. And they have
you
some
guys
big
have any?
hogs and everything.
So while they're thinking of questions, you want to go into your books? Do you have any published right now?
None just yet. None just yet. And I'm hoping that by the end of this year, I'll have those two books ready to go. So if anybody wants a copy, you know, let me know and I'll mark you guys down and I'll be sure to send them out to you the minute they get published.
I will take one, sir.
Oh, absolutely. I'll send you a signed copy.
I would appreciate that because I can't wait to read it. My
You know,
question to you, go ahead.
it's kind of my fault though that the books are taking so long because like just when I think I'm done, I find more information and I'm like, ah, crap. Now I got to add this to it too. Now I got to add this. Now I got to add that. So I'm always adding to these books.
My question to you: when you interview all of these people, what's the effect that it's had on a lot of these people? Has it been negative, positive? Has their lives changed? I mean, mine changed when I saw what I did, but what's the one thing
Mhm.
that stands out in your mind when you're interviewing people?
It depends on what I'm interviewing them for. Like in the case of the Skinwalkers, the few that I do get to interview, they just have this constant fear that they carry around with them. You know, but with Dogman, it's like they get over it kind of like, you know, you and I did. And
Hmm.
Bigfoot, it seems to be more positive. I noticed that there's a really big difference between the Skinwalkers, the Dogman, and the Bigfoot. Like more people have that positive outlook on their Bigfoot encounters, whereas Dogman, they're kind of like, I'm not sure I want to go out in the woods again. Whereas like the Skinwalkers, people are like, I never want to see this ever again.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So,
Thank
before
you,
I
Dirt
have,
Road.
yeah, that you're right, Dirt Road. he's been very entertaining, and I'm definitely going to have you back. We're going to finish this discussion, but the kind
Anytime.
of type, man, I just love having you on. You're just entertaining, and
Thank you.
you're just a wealth. I'm gonna call you the encyclopedia man. There you go.
Good name. I like it.
Oh, well, you're welcome, sir. I worked hard on that. I've been thinking about it the whole show. So just to put everything else and to wind this down, what do you want to get out there?
Well, I want to encourage people to do your own research. If you think that somebody you're talking to isn't relaying the adequate information, by all means, do like I did, man. Go to libraries, go to different places, and talk to people that know this stuff and learn their firsthand experiences and their knowledge, because you're going to learn so much more from other people. Don't rely on just TV shows or YouTube. And I mean, if you ever got questions on Wendigo or Skinwalker, hit me up, man. I'll always share what I know with you guys. But be careful, okay? If you guys are going to go out investigating for cryptids, know before you go, okay? Look into an area, research the history, research whether or not there was accidents there or injuries or even murders, and always go with people and let people know where you're going. Don't be another statistic, okay? Don't be another number that goes disappearing like that. And have fun. I mean, cryptozoology should be fun. So have fun, damn it.
Okay, so Dirt Road Bigfoot wants to know if you'll come on his podcast.
I absolutely will, Dirt Road. Just send me a message over on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, or wait, is it X nowadays or Twitter? It's the same thing. Hit me over on any of those, and I will definitely schedule it with you, and I'll be glad to go on your show anytime.
I'll be there I'll be right there in the live chat, just supporting
Nice.
you on the whole time. Dang, Miss Vicky. Well, what did you expect, Dirt Road? I agree with you. I always tell someone where you're at. BFG said, "What makes a cryptozoologist?"
That's a really good question. Now, in my own opinion, it's somebody that really takes the subject very seriously, and we look into it. We overturn every stone and every pebble. We don't shame any witnesses, and we try to learn as much as we can. Okay, it's not about getting clicks and views on YouTube. It's not about getting put on TV shows. It's about actually wanting the answers to these huge mysteries. That's what makes a cryptozoologist.
Okay, so Brian, I love you, Brian. Um, Brian is an amazing guest, and I love his passion for the subject that he covers. I
Thank you,
agree,
Brian.
and I will definitely tell you, Ryan, when I get people that contact me right now, I'm mostly getting to the researchers because that's what I
Mhm.
relate to.
Right.
I'm not really someone with experiences reach out to, so I'm really big on the researchers. But when I get some people that need some answers, if it's okay with you, I send them your way.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm here for. Okay. And as a community, we need to help one another. And if we can't help one another, we shouldn't be here.
I agree with you. Cut out the
Oh,
drama.
yeah.
I'll work together. I'll support it. Like, me and Dirt Road Bigfoot, the BFFG, we
Mhm.
all support each other. And
There you go.
you are Encyclopedia Ryan. And
Oh, thank you.
Brian Barber
Yes,
says,
Brian. Yeah. Yeah. Godzilla's my boy.
that sounds like a bromance forming there.
Oh, yeah. I have a lifelong romance with Godzilla. That's one of my first loves.
Says Brian is brown nosing, just
If
playing.
you look at my Facebook page, I'm constantly posting Godzilla stuff. I'm just like I'm in love with the giant monsters.
Well, well, it's a shame Godzilla. Oh, let's take a step backwards. Thunderbirds.
Ooh, Thunderbirds. That's very big in the Native American belief, and those are a positive thing. In fact, they're kind of like a kaiju in a way because they have stories of the Thunderbird fighting the Great Serpent. So it's a beautiful, beautiful story, but it's thought of as a very positive and very energetic being. So when you hear all these stories of horror stories with Thunderbirds, those are pretty much BS because the Native Americans worship the Thunderbirds.
I'm going to let you guys in on a little insight. When I was overseas, I was up in England, and there was a very famous psychic at a party I went to. She worked with
Mhm.
Scotland Yard and a lot of the
Ooh.
government. Yeah, she was legit. And when she walked in the party, she went straight across the room at me. She goes, as soon as I saw you, she said, I saw a totem pole with a thunderbird on fire above your head. She goes, don't know what
Wow.
it means. She goes, I don't know what it means. I don't, know a lot about the Native Americans. She goes, but I just need to tell you that. And I was like, and I've never learned what a burning thunderbird means. Never.
Well, it sounds to me like it was kind of interwoven with the phoenix. So the Thunderbird represents strength and virility. So, she was probably seeing that you're a very strong person and you're very determined. But with the phoenix, that's rising from the ashes after, maybe your accident or something that you're telling me about earlier.
Well, yeah, because I did have a near death experience. But anyway,
Well, see,
that's
there you
another story.
go. And if you're
Yeah, well,
familiar with the story of the phoenix, once it was resurrected as the phoenix, it was stronger and much more powerful. So that might have been a very spiritual message just for you.
I appreciate you. I've spent all of these years, it's been over a decade, wondering what that meant. And I don't trust everything Google tells me, so.
There you go. You shouldn't either. So, oh, and Dirt Road. I love King Kong too, man. I got nothing but love for King Kong. In fact, when he fought Godzilla, I was like, I wanted Kong to win.
I guess I'm different. I like Catwoman. So,
Oh, there you
anyway.
go. And Creature from the
Meow.
Black Lagoon too. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
Oh, stop it. Oh, I'll
These are
remember
my
that
people
one.
right here. These are my people. All I can say is Julia Adams.
Yeah, they're wiping the drool off their face. Thanks, Ryan. Well, I am so glad that they started asking questions. We got to a slow start. I had a lot of questions, but it seems like sometimes when I go live and I get on air, I kind of freeze, and I think that will pass in time. I
Oh
appreciate the
yeah.
people coming in the chat supporting you.
I think
I
you did
appreciate your.
terrifically. I think you did great.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. I mean, you just boom. Yeah, sure, I'll come on. And that is a book I am glad I opened, and you will always have a place on the Not So Perfect Bigfoot show. And when I get
Oh,
some
I'm honored.
shirts made up, they're going to look a little freaky. They're going to be a Bigfoot in a bathrobe with hair curls with a bunch of cats running around them. I'm gonna send you
I
one
love
though.
it. Oh yes,
That
please do. I love it.
I
Yes.
just I just got the decal made up, so they should be. I'll make sure you get one. So welcome to the family, and I look
Oh,
forward to
thank you.
seeing you on Dirt Road Bigfoot show.
All right. Well, everybody have a fantastic day. And thanks so much for having me on.
Well, you're welcome, brother, and peace be
All
with
right.
you, and be safe out there.
Same to you. You take care, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye.